The Last Winter, written by Adrian Grigore, narrated by Billie Lafond. Motto: where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? Corinthians 1:20. Prologue. The time for the old European continent to freeze again slowly but ineluctably came much earlier than scholars had predicted. In our lands, everyone was going into a frenzy, and panic flared. People were fleeing towns and cities, deserting their apartments, where electricity and heating were out of work, and huddled in the villages, where they cut down what had been left of the old woods. The youths were moving to warmer countries, for the winters grew longer and bleaker every year, and frost conquered the most sheltered of nests. Food, and the most basic staples for survival, were growing increasingly expensive. On top of it, a strange phenomenon had developed: destructive induction, as they called it, since no matter where a war was going on around the world, holes and debris were turning up out of the blue in our towns and villages, although the bombs were falling elsewhere, far away. Local authorities were terribly concerned and went on sending out workers with shovels and wheelbarrows to patch the tarmac, but they could not keep up, and the holes were multiplying by the day, as there were many wars all over, particularly oil wars. We had no trouble in this respect. Oil had become so scarce and costly in our area that one would rarely see a battered car or bus crawling around the holes. Warped covered wagons drawn by famished horses now rolled along the vestiges of roads and highways. Packs of scamps were prowling here and there in search of loot, of which there was no shortage, as many people had run away without much care of what they left behind. Some blamed it on the planet Earth, the slant of whose rotation axis had changed, they said, bringing about this catastrophic situation. Others believed pollution was responsible, or wars, while the majority would pin the blame on greedy, sleazy politicians who'd bled the country white through taxes to their benefit. Yet God alone knew who was to blame and why he visited this punishment on people. A modest dreamer lived amongst us in those days that still hoped these mishaps could be reversed. He would tell anyone around they must make a clean breast of their errors, identify the real reasons that lay behind them, and stop repeating them. He didn't hate the wrongdoers. He only wanted to make sure they would not fall back into such doings anymore. His was a trade that everyone despised as useless. He was a researcher. Besides, he had become a nuisance because of his spectacular discovery that many found annoying. He had scientifically demonstrated and experimentally proved that anyone who did wrong in their lives thereby generated negative energy fields that were proportional with the gravity of their deeds. These fields, arising from the evil deeds of every individual, were adding up into one big malefic field that became devastating once its intensity increased beyond a certain threshold. It threw nature out of balance and was even apt to generate disasters. He had even found a way to annihilate this harmful energy, but this was not easily done. Actually, it was downright impossible most of the time, as it was the perpetrator of a wrong alone that could unravel the noxious field.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?